It was a quiet night, the stars glimmering above as I sat alone in the courtyard gazing at the sky. The kind of night that made you believe anything was possible. An ordinary night for most, but for me it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. I had always dreamed of a life beyond the confines of my own world. For years I imagined a love that would defy the boundaries of Earth. A love so deep, so unyielding, that nothing could stand in its way. Little did I know that very night, my dream was about to take shape in the most unexpected way. The night sky, once familiar, began to change. At first it was subtle, just a slight flicker, like the distant stars had decided to dance. But then, the flickers grew larger, swirling in patterns that made no sense. I stood up, heart racing, wondering if I was seeing things. But then it happened. A sudden bright light streaked across the sky like a comet breaking through the atmosphere. It grew larger, closer, and before I could even react, a figure emerged from the light, gracefully descending to the ground before me. She was like nothing I had ever seen. Her skin shimmered, not quite human, not quite alien. A soft glow seemed to emanate from her, reflecting the moonlight in a way that was otherworldly. Her long hair cascaded down her back in a cascade of silken strands, shifting between colors as if woven from starlight. But it was her eyes, those deep, shimmering eyes that caught my breath. They held the vastness of space within them, infinite and mysterious. She was beautiful, but there was something more, something deeper, as if her very presence spoke to the soul. I could hardly breathe as I stared at her, unable to comprehend the reality of what was happening. She was standing before me, yet I couldn't believe she was real. My heart raced, and in that moment I felt as though I was witnessing the most profound moment of my life, a moment that could change everything. She spoke. Her voice was soft like the whisper of the wind, but each word carried the weight of an entire universe. I have come to find you. I froze, unsure of what to say or if I could even say anything. How could I respond to someone who wasn't just from another world, but seemed to belong to a realm far beyond human understanding? Her words echoed in my mind, pulling me into a world I had only ever dreamed about. Find me, I managed to stammer, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. Who are you? I am Alira, she said, her name a melody in itself. A princess from the distant star system of Valyria. I have watched over your world, your people, from afar, and I have seen the dreams you have. Dreams of a love that spans the cosmos, of a life beyond the stars. Her words hit me like a thunderclap, though her tone remained calm, serene. How could she know my dreams? It was impossible. Yet there she stood in front of me, making them seem like reality. I stumbled, trying to find my voice. I don't understand.
How do you know about me?
About my dreams? Alira took a step forward, her eyes never leaving mine. I have been searching for you for years. My people, my planet. We have known of the prophecy, the one that speaks of a human and a Valyrian uniting to change the course of our worlds. I have come to fulfill that prophecy. My heart skipped a beat. A prophecy? This was more than just an encounter. It was fate. The connection I felt in that moment was undeniable. Everything in me, every fiber of my being seemed to scream that this was no coincidence. But why me? Why was I chosen? Alira smiled, a soft, knowing smile, as if she could read the questions swirling in my mind. The universe works in mysterious ways. But one thing is clear, our fates are intertwined. I stared at her, still in disbelief, yet a part of me felt something I had never felt before. A certainty, a pull, as if the universe itself was guiding me toward this moment. My heart, once unsure and restless, now beat with a steady rhythm that seemed to echo in harmony with hers. And in that instant, I realized this was just the beginning of a journey that would change everything I had ever known. A journey that would bridge the gap between worlds and perhaps even beyond the stars. The world around us seemed to fade into the background. The once familiar earthly sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant hum of city life, were now replaced by an eerie stillness. It felt as if time itself had paused just for this moment. I couldn't take my eyes off Alira. She was more than just an alien. She was a living, breathing manifestation of everything I had ever longed for. The mystery of her presence, the unknown destiny that she carried with her, stirred something deep within me. You're real, I said softly, almost as if speaking to myself. Her gaze softened. I am real, and I have been waiting for you, as the stars have waited for me. I couldn't help but marvel at the calmness in her voice. The way she spoke with the certainty of someone who had always known their purpose. How could she be so sure? How could she be so composed in a moment like this? I blinked, still trying to make sense of it all. But why now? Why come to me after all this time? I'm just an ordinary man. She stepped closer, her presence filling the air like an unseen force. You are far from ordinary. The prophecy speaks of one who is both humble and full of potential. One who will stand beside a Valyrian to heal the rift between our worlds. I have searched the stars for you. The weight of her words hung in the air, the promise of something far greater than any dream I had ever dared to dream. But beneath the wonder and awe, there was an undercurrent of uncertainty in my chest. Was I truly capable of fulfilling this prophecy? Could someone like me really change the course of two worlds? She seemed to sense my hesitation. Her hand, glowing with a soft light, reached out, gently resting on my arm. Do not doubt yourself. The journey will be difficult, but you will never be alone. I will stand by you as you stand by me. The warmth of her touch spread through me like a spark lighting a fire. I had never felt anything like it, an energy that was both calming and electrifying at the same time. It was as if every part of me, every doubt, every fear was slowly being erased, replaced with a growing sense of hope. But how? I whispered, still struggling to understand. How do we even begin? You're from another star system. How can we bridge the gap between our worlds? Aelira smiled, a quiet confidence radiating from her. It begins with trust. You must trust me and I you. Together we will learn what it means to be united. Our worlds are not so different as you might think. There is more to the universe than just distance and time. There is connection, an invisible thread that binds all living beings. I felt the truth of her words resonate deep within me. I had always known that there was more to life than what the eye could see. But hearing it from her, spoken with such conviction, made everything seem so much clearer. Perhaps I had always been searching for this connection without even knowing it. I took a step toward her, feeling an unspoken bond beginning to form between us. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to try. For you. For this prophecy. Her eyes shone with gratitude, and in that moment I knew I had made the right choice. You are not alone, she said, her voice soft and reassuring. We will walk this path together. And in time you will see the truth of the prophecy, the truth of our love, and the love that binds the universe. As the words left her lips, I could feel something stirring within me, an energy that seemed to echo the promise she had just made. The stars above flickered once more as if responding to the vow we had just spoken, and for the first time in my life I truly believed that anything was possible. Aelira's hand remained on my arm, and I could feel the warmth of her presence in every fiber of my being. This was just the beginning. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but with her by my side, I knew that no obstacle was insurmountable. As I stood there, bathed in the light of the stars and the gentle glow of Aelira's presence, I realized that the universe was not just vast, it was connected. And in that moment I understood that love, the most powerful force in existence, had no boundaries. The prophecy was not just a story, it was our story. And together, we would make it a reality. The days that followed were unlike any I had ever experienced. My life had changed overnight, and I could barely keep up with the whirlwind of emotions and thoughts that seemed to surround Aelira. She was here in my world, yet her presence felt like something from a distant dream, a dream I had unknowingly prepared for all my life. As we spent more time together, something strange began to happen. The connection between us grew stronger, deeper, as if it were something destined, something that had been waiting to unfold for eons. We met often in the quiet hours of the night, in the secluded areas of my town where no one could see us. Aelira was careful to keep her identity hidden from the world, her shimmering form cloaked by an aura that blended with the shadows. Still, despite her attempt to remain unseen, I couldn't help but marvel at her beauty. The way she moved with a grace that was almost otherworldly, her laughter like a melody that filled the air with warmth. She shared stories of her home, the distant star system of Valyria. Her planet was a world of unimaginable beauty, with oceans that glistened under twin suns and cities built from shimmering crystals. The people of her world were peaceful, wise, and long-lived, their culture one of harmony and knowledge. But despite all the wonder and splendor of Valyria, Elira's heart seemed to ache with a longing for something she could never find there. "Why did you leave?" I asked one evening as we sat beneath the stars, the cool night air surrounding us. Elira's gaze drifted toward the heavens. "My people are bound by duty. I was raised to lead, to carry the weight of an entire civilization on my shoulders. But the prophecy, it called to me. I had to leave to find you. My heart has always known that I could not fulfill my destiny without you." I watched her closely, noticing the subtle sadness in her eyes. Despite the grandeur of her world, she had always felt an emptiness, a sense of isolation. I knew what it was like to feel like an outsider, to long for something greater. In many ways, Elira and I were not so different. "You're not alone anymore," I said softly, taking her hand in mine. "I'm here, and I believe in what we're meant to do together." She turned her gaze toward me, her eyes glowing with something akin to hope. "And so do I," she replied, her voice steady yet filled with an emotion I couldn't fully describe. But despite the connection we shared, there was still so much I didn't understand. Every time Elira spoke of the prophecy, the weight of her words seemed heavier, as if it carried more responsibility than I could imagine. What was this destiny we were meant to fulfill? What did it mean for us, for the worlds we came from, for everything we knew? It wasn't long before I realized that the challenges ahead would not be easy. My bond with Elira, as powerful as it was, would be tested. The prophecy she spoke of was not just a matter of love, it was about healing, about bringing together two civilizations that had been separated for millennia. And that kind of change, I understood now, would not come without sacrifice. One evening, as I sat in my room reflecting on everything I had learned from Elira, there was a sudden knock at my door. I opened it cautiously, my heart racing. Standing before me was a figure I did not recognize, tall, cloaked in dark robes, with eyes that seemed to pierce through the shadows. "I've been watching you," the stranger said, his voice cold and calculating. "You think you can change the future? You, a mere human, cannot bridge the gap between our worlds. You do not understand the forces you are meddling with." I stepped back, taken aback by the sudden intrusion. "Who are you?" The figure smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only the promise of something darker. "I am someone who understands the cost of prophecy. I am someone who has seen what happens when those who are not prepared try to alter the course of fate." My pulse quickened. What was he talking about? Was he threatening us? He took a step closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Elira has no idea what she's gotten herself into. And you're just a pawn in her game. There are forces that will stop at nothing to ensure that the prophecy fails. And you, my friend, are about to face them." Fear tightened in my chest, but I refused to back down. "I won't let you intimidate me," I said, my voice firm despite the uncertainty bubbling inside. The stranger's smile faded, replaced by an expression of quiet amusement. "We'll see," he said, his eyes narrowing. "We'll see if you're truly ready for what's to come." As he disappeared into the night, I was left standing there feeling more lost than ever. Who was this man? What did he know about the prophecy? And why had he come after us? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered and relentless. One thing was clear: our journey was far from over. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, and the forces we were up against were more powerful and dangerous than I could have ever anticipated. But no matter what, I knew I could not walk away. Not now. For the first time, I understood the full weight of Elira's words. This was not just about us. It was about the fate of two worlds, and somehow I was at the center of it all. The days that followed felt heavier than before, as if the very air around us had thickened, laden with uncertainty. After the strange encounter with the mysterious figure, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in on us. Something I didn't fully understand, but knew deep down I had to face. Elira, ever the calm presence in my life, noticed my unease. She had seen the shadows lurking in my eyes, and it wasn't long before she brought up the subject herself. "We must prepare," Elira said one evening, her voice filled with a quiet intensity. "There are forces out there who will do anything to prevent what we are trying to accomplish. The prophecy is not just a hope. It is a threat to some." I looked at her, startled by the gravity of her words. "But how can we fight something we don't even understand? Who was that man? What does he know about us?" Elira took a deep breath, her fingers brushing through her silver hair as she gathered her thoughts. "He was one of many who have seen the prophecy as a threat. There are those in my world who believe that uniting with a human will weaken us. There are those who do not want change. And then, There are those who fear the power of the prophecy itself. Fear the power of the prophecy? I asked, confused. What do you mean? The prophecy speaks of an alliance between our worlds, but not just any alliance, one that will shift the balance of power across the galaxy, she said softly, her eyes distant as though recalling something painful. Our union has the potential to create a ripple effect that could challenge the established order of both our worlds. Some fear that this alliance will lead to the downfall of the old ways where power and control are held by the few. It was a lot to take in. Every word Elira spoke seemed to deepen the mystery surrounding the prophecy, and yet I couldn't turn away from it. I had already given my heart to her, and with it my trust. There was no turning back now, no matter how dangerous the path ahead seemed. You don't have to do this alone, I said, stepping closer to her. We'll face whatever comes together. Whatever happens, I'm with you. She met my gaze, her eyes filled with warmth, but beneath it a flicker of doubt. You are brave, but you do not know what lies ahead. I do not wish to see you hurt because of me. I shook my head. No one else has ever made me feel alive like you do. I've been searching for something greater my entire life, and now I've found it. I'm not afraid to stand by your side, no matter the cost. Elira smiled, her face softening in a way that made my heart skip a beat. Then we must begin. Time is no longer on our side. That night we began our preparations in earnest. Elira shared with me more about the ancient knowledge of her people, about the ways in which the prophecy had been passed down through generations. There were old texts, hidden away in the deepest chambers of her family's archives, that spoke of the joining of Earth and Valyria. Some texts hinted at unimaginable power that could be unleashed through the Union, while others warned of the devastating consequences if it failed. But nothing she said could have prepared me for the next part of our journey. As we ventured deeper into the mysteries of the prophecy, a new figure emerged from the shadows. This time it wasn't a stranger in dark robes. It was someone I recognized, someone I had trusted. Elira and I were walking through the park late one evening, her hand in mine, when I saw him, a familiar face. Michael, my closest friend, stood under a streetlight, his eyes shadowed with a strange intensity. His usual smile was absent, replaced by a cold, unreadable expression. I froze. He was the last person I expected to see, especially in this moment. Michael, I called, my voice uncertain. What are you doing here? He turned slowly, his eyes locking with mine, and I could see something in his gaze that I had never seen before. Fear. And something else, betrayal. You've gone too far, Michael said, his voice low but tinged with an edge I couldn't quite place. You have no idea what you're involving yourself in. This isn't just a story. There are forces you don't understand, and they're already watching. I looked at Elira, who stood beside me, her expression calm but wary. Michael, what are you talking about? This is real. You've seen what's happening. You know I can't walk away from this. His gaze flickered to Elira, and for a moment I saw a flicker of recognition followed by a flash of something darker. He took a step closer, his words quick and desperate. You're not the only one who's been watching, you know. I've been keeping an eye on you both, and I've learned things. Dangerous things. Things that could destroy everything you've been trying to build. My heart pounded in my chest. What do you mean? There are those who are waiting to stop you, Caleb, Michael said, his eyes never leaving Elira. You're playing with something far bigger than you realize. I'm warning you. There are people out there who would kill to stop this prophecy from happening. You have no idea the danger you're in. Elira stepped forward, her presence like a quiet storm. I am aware of the danger, Michael, but I will not stop. The prophecy is not just a curse, it is a chance for both of our worlds to heal. And if that means facing darkness, we will face it. Michael looked between us, his face contorting with something close to fear. You don't know what you're up against, he whispered. You're both in over your heads. With those words, he turned and walked away, leaving us standing in the silence that followed. I stood there, unsure of what to make of his warning. Was he telling the truth? Was there something more sinister at play than I had realized? But one thing was certain. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. And now I understood. Our journey wasn't just about love or the prophecy. It was about survival. Survival against forces that would stop at nothing to prevent our union. And we were about to face them head-on. The following days were filled with tension, like the stillness before a storm. Michael's warning echoed in my mind. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that our journey would not be as simple as I had imagined. Elira and I were not just fighting for love. We were fighting for the future of two worlds. But even as the weight of this truth settled in, a part of me refused to be swallowed by fear. We had come this far together, and I wasn't about to let anything or anyone stand in our way. "I know it's not going to be easy," Elira said one evening, her voice steady but filled with a quiet determination as we stood at the edge of a small cliff, overlooking the city. "The path ahead is filled with dangers that we cannot fully predict. But we must press forward. If we don't, everything we've worked for will be lost." I nodded, the cool wind against my face only adding to the growing sense of urgency. "I'm not going anywhere. We'll face whatever comes together." She turned to me, her eyes locking with mine. "I don't want you to feel burdened by this. You didn't ask for any of this, and it's not fair for you to carry this weight." I took her hands in mine, feeling the warm pulse of her energy, like a quiet promise flowing between us. "I choose this. I choose you. This. Whatever comes, it's worth it." There was a silence between us, a quiet understanding that we were no longer just individuals, but part of something much bigger. As the wind rustled around us, I felt a new sense of clarity, a quiet strength that told me we could do this. But the world outside our little bubble was less certain. The days passed quickly, and with them the threats became more real. We began to notice strange movements in the city. People following us, watching us from the shadows, their eyes filled with suspicion and hostility. I knew something was amiss, but we could never quite place who or what was behind it. All I knew was that someone was always watching. One evening, after an unsettling encounter with a group of people in dark robes, I returned to the safe house where Elira and I were hiding, my mind racing with questions. "Something's wrong," I said as I entered, my voice filled with urgency. "There's something happening. They're closer than we thought." Elira looked up from the table where she had been studying ancient texts. Her brow furrowed and her lips parted as if to speak, but she stopped herself. She stood up and walked over to me, her hand resting gently on my arm. "We knew they would come eventually. They have been watching us, tracking our every move, but we have no choice but to move forward." I shook my head. "We can't keep running forever, Elira. They're going to catch up with us, and when they do, I don't know if we'll be ready." Her expression softened, but there was a quiet strength in her eyes. "We will be ready. Together." But as we prepared for the inevitable confrontation, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that we were not just up against those who wanted to stop the prophecy. There was something more, something hidden beneath the surface. Late one night, as I sat with Elira going over our plans, there was a sudden knock at the door. Elira's eyes darted to the window and she motioned for me to stay quiet. She moved silently, her movements graceful and almost predatory, as she peered through a crack in the door. "They're here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. My heart raced as the sound of footsteps grew louder. I could hear the voices of several men murmuring in low tones. The air seemed to grow thick with tension as the door handle began to turn. "They found us," I said, my voice tight with fear. Elira's gaze remained calm, but her eyes were filled with something deeper. Determination, yes, but also something else. A promise that she would not let anything happen to us. "I will handle this," she said softly, her voice barely a breath. "Stay hidden." Before I could protest, Elira was already moving toward the door, her figure a blur in the dim light. I couldn't just sit there helpless. I needed to be with her. We were in this together. I followed her out into the hallway where a group of men stood, their backs to us. They hadn't noticed our presence yet. "Elira," I whispered urgently, but she raised her hand, signaling me to stay back. With a swift motion, she stepped into their path, her body radiating an energy I couldn't fully understand. The men froze, their eyes wide in shock. Elira's presence seemed to command the air itself, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. "Leave," Elira said, her voice not a command but a force. "Now." The men hesitated, exchanging glances, their unease palpable. One of them, the tallest among them, took a step forward, his gaze unwavering. "You think you can stop us? You have no idea what you're dealing with." Elira stepped closer, her hand reaching out, glowing with a soft light. "I know exactly what I'm dealing with." Suddenly the air crackled and the room filled with a strange energy. The men stumbled back as if a wave of invisible force had knocked them off balance. They recovered quickly, But the look of fear on their faces told me everything I needed to know. They were not prepared for Elira's power. Leave. Now, Elira repeated, her voice low and commanding. The leader of the group nodded reluctantly, his eyes narrowing in fury. This isn't over. We will stop you no matter what it takes. As they retreated into the shadows, Elira turned to me, her eyes tired but determined. We have to move fast. The time for hiding is over, and just like that I knew our time was running out. We had no more time to waste. The prophecy was no longer just a dream. It was a battle, and we were ready to face it together. The air was thick with tension as Elira and I moved through the night, our hearts racing in unison. The words of the stranger still echoed in my mind. We will stop you. The promise of danger seemed so close now, a constant shadow that lurked at the edge of our world. But despite the fear that gripped me, there was a resolve that grew stronger with each passing moment. We could not stop now. We were far beyond the point of no return. Elira led the way, her steps light, her posture confident. Her powers had grown stronger since we first met, and I could sense the immense strength within her. She was no longer just the delicate princess I had once imagined, but a force of nature, unwavering, resolute. She had become the embodiment of everything we were fighting for, everything I had dreamed of. As we made our way through the narrow alleyways of the city, we stopped at an old abandoned warehouse. It was a place I had never been to before, but Elira knew it well. She glanced around, ensuring no one was watching before she motioned for me to follow her inside. The inside of the warehouse was dimly lit, its shadows stretching long across the walls. Dust motes danced in the faint light that filtered through the cracks in the broken windows. It was eerily quiet, too quiet. Elira led me to the back of the warehouse where an old wooden door stood ajar. Behind it, hidden away from the world, was a small room. As I stepped inside, I couldn't help but be amazed. The room was filled with relics, ancient texts, strange artifacts, and star maps that seemed to shimmer with their own light. This was no ordinary hiding place. This was where the heart of the prophecy was kept, and where the answers to everything we had been searching for lay. This is where it all began, Elira said, her voice barely above a whisper. The key to uniting our worlds. The texts that hold the secrets of the prophecy. I could see the weight of the room settle on her shoulders as she walked toward a large, ornate table. On it lay a weathered scroll, its edges tattered from age. The symbols on the parchment were unfamiliar to me, yet they seemed to pulsate with an energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I stepped closer, my fingers hovering over the scroll. What does it say? Elira studied the scroll for a moment, her eyes scanning the symbols with a deep concentration. This is the final piece, the final part of the prophecy. It speaks of the final test, the trial that will prove our worth. We must face it or everything will be lost. I frowned, my mind racing. What test? What do we have to do? Her gaze met mine, a serious look in her eyes. It's a test of trust, Caleb. The prophecy can only be fulfilled if we are truly united, body, mind, and spirit. There are forces that will try to tear us apart, but we cannot let them. We must prove that our bond is stronger than any threat, stronger than any fear. Her words struck me deeply. The weight of the prophecy, the magnitude of what we were trying to accomplish had always seemed distant, something abstract. But now, standing in this room with Elira, surrounded by the very heart of the prophecy, I understood. This was real. We were standing at the precipice of something far greater than ourselves, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What happens if we fail? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Elira's expression softened, and she placed a hand gently on my shoulder. If we fail, everything we've worked for will crumble. The rift between our worlds will remain, and both Valyria and Earth will fall into ruin. I felt a chill run down my spine. The weight of her words settled heavily on my chest. The world was on the brink of destruction, and it all came down to us, our bond, our love, our willingness to fight against everything that threatened to tear us apart. But as much as the fear gnawed at me, there was something else, something far more powerful. It was the realization that we weren't alone in this. We had each other. We had the strength to face whatever came next, because together, we were unstoppable. Elira turned back to the scroll, her fingers tracing the ancient symbols with a reverence that only someone who had spent their entire life preparing for this moment could understand. We must be ready. The test will come when we least expect it, and when it does, we must stand together. The door creaked open suddenly, breaking the silence. I whipped around, my heart racing. Standing in the doorway was another figure, a familiar face, but one I never thought I'd see here. It was Michael. His eyes were wide with concern, and he stepped into the room cautiously, as if unsure of what he would find. "I couldn't stay away," Michael said, his voice strained. "I couldn't just sit back and watch this happen." "You're in over your head, Caleb. You don't understand what you're up against." Elira's gaze narrowed. "You shouldn't have come. This is no longer a matter of simple friendship, Michael. We're fighting for the future of two worlds." Michael looked from me to Elira, his face torn. "I don't want to see you both destroyed. But there are forces far greater than you realize. Forces that won't stop until they tear this apart." Elira stepped forward, her presence filling the room. "I have no intention of letting this prophecy fail. The future of both Earth and Valyria depends on it. If you are here to help, then stand by us. If not, then leave." For a moment, Michael seemed to hesitate, but then he nodded. "I'm with you. But we have to move fast. Time is running out." The room seemed to hold its breath, and for the first time I felt the weight of what we were about to face. This was no longer just a journey of discovery. It was a war, not just for the future of our worlds, but for our very survival. The final test was coming, and we were ready to face it. Together. The night seemed darker now, the weight of the world pressing heavily against us. The words Michael had spoken, the warning, the fear in his eyes lingered in my mind. We had crossed a threshold and there was no going back. The forces against us weren't just watching. They were preparing, gathering, and we could feel the tension in the air. I had come to realize that everything we had fought for, everything we had believed in, was on the line. And in the quiet moments between planning and action, I found myself wondering, would we be enough? The room was filled with a silence that was almost deafening. Elira, Michael, and I stood together, united but uncertain. It was as though we were caught in a moment of suspended time, knowing that the storm was coming, yet unsure of when it would break. "Are you ready?" Elira asked softly, her eyes searching mine. There was something in her gaze that spoke of both the weight she carried and the fierce determination that had been burning within her since we met. She had become more than just a princess from another world. She had become my partner, my equal. I looked at her, and in that moment I knew the answer without a doubt. "I'm ready." "We're ready." Michael stood slightly apart from us, his brow furrowed with concern. Despite his initial warning, I could see the resolve in his eyes. He had made his choice, and though it was clear he was still uncertain about the prophecy, he had come to understand one thing. There was no turning back. "I don't know what's ahead, but if we're going to fight, we fight together," Michael said, his voice steady. "I'm with you both. I'll help however I can." Elira's expression softened, and she nodded her approval. "Good. We need all the help we can get." It was then that I realized how much had changed since the day we first met. The boy who had dreamt of a love that spanned the stars had never imagined this. The dangers, the uncertainty, and the immense power that lay within Elira's hands and heart. But I had also never imagined the depth of connection that would bind us. We had become more than just dreamers. We had become a force. The minutes stretched into hours as we finalized our plans. We knew we couldn't stay hidden forever, and we couldn't allow the prophecy to be destroyed by those who feared it. The trial that awaited us would test everything: our trust, our strength, and our ability to stand united against the unimaginable forces that sought to tear us apart. The scroll in the back room lay open before us, its symbols glowing faintly. The ancient text spoke of a final test, a trial where we would face the full force of the forces trying to stop the prophecy. If we succeeded, we would unite our worlds. If we failed, the rift between Earth and Valyria would only grow, tearing our civilizations apart. The test wasn't just about power or strength. It was about sacrifice. The prophecy was clear. To succeed, we would need to prove that our bond was stronger than any threat. That love, our love, was the key to healing the divide. I turned to Elira, my heart full of emotions I couldn't fully describe. What if we fail? What if we're not strong enough? Elira stepped closer to me, her gaze unwavering. "We will never know unless we try. We are stronger than you think, Caleb. Together we can change the course of everything." Her words steadied me, reminding me of the bond we shared. We had come so far, and now, with Michael's help, we were ready to face whatever came next. The night finally gave way to dawn, and with the first light of morning, the air shifted. We had to move. The first signs of the enemy's presence had already shown. Shadowed figures moving through the streets, their intentions clear. They were ready to fight, and they had come for us. Aelira stood at the front, her hand glowing with the soft light that had always surrounded her. We move now. Trust in the prophecy. Trust in each other. With that, we stepped out into the streets, our hearts pounding as we walked toward the unknown. We knew we were not alone in this battle. Not just because of Michael, but because the prophecy had already begun to take hold of our fates. We were not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We were fighting for the future of two worlds. We reached the center of the city, and the air seemed to hum with energy. Shadows began to gather around us. Strangers cloaked in darkness, their faces hidden but their presence unmistakable. It was clear they were here to stop us. The leader of the group stepped forward, his eyes filled with cold resolve. "You think you can change fate? You're nothing but pawns in a game you don't understand." Aelira didn't flinch. "You don't understand either. This isn't about fate. This is about choice, and we choose to unite our worlds," the leader sneered. "You are too naive to see the truth. You cannot stop what has already begun." The tension in the air was unbearable, thick with the weight of impending battle. But I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel doubt. I felt something stronger, something that had been growing inside me since I met Aelira. It was hope, the belief that we could succeed because we believed in each other. As the first strike was launched, I stepped forward, standing beside Aelira. Together we would face whatever came next, not just as two beings from different worlds, but as a united force, a force bound by love, by trust, and by the unshakable belief that together we could change everything. The battle was just beginning. But I knew one thing for certain: we would win, because we had each other, and in the end, love was all we needed.